government employees' pension fund so they cannot bail out their state entities. This comes after reports that the Treasury wanted the Public Investment Corporation PIC, which manages government employee pensions, to bail out SAA with more than 10 billion rand. Zwelinzima Vavi is the General Secretary of SAFTU and he joins us in our studios in Johannesburg. Bab Vavi, good morning to you and thank you so much for coming through.
Good morning to you.
Thank you so much indeed. I believe that the fact that 94.9% of PIC's funds is workers' money is what concerns you the most as SAFTU.
Absolutely. And 88% of that is the government employee pension fund. The remainder is the UIF and the compensation fund. All of them having a direct contribution from the workers. The employee pension fund and the UIF, all of them, including compensation, very sensitive issues to workers because when workers get injured, that's where they must draw money from to get some form of income whilst they are nursing their injuries. When workers get employed, they must draw from the UIF, and when workers go on pension, they must be able to draw from the employee pension funds. And raiding that money in the context of what we're reading about in the newspapers makes our stomachs to turn. We're very angry. We are very alarmed that the government is reported to be now looking at this fund, a 1.8 trillion rands or nearly 2 trillion rands, to fund state-owned enterprises that the government the government is responsible for collapsing. Through this govtarization of everything, when they had launched a program to remove all professional, competent individuals and replace them with the deployees of the govt, including yet SABC, to collapse them, then suddenly workers must clean the mess. We're saying no to that, and that's why we've made a number of calls.
But are you not happy with Treasury's response that this is not necessarily a bailout, but a capital injection, and no confirmation has been made thus far on this matter?
The problem that we face right there is that this Treasury doesn't enjoy any kind of trust, or nobody thinks that they are credible. We know that they are midnight appointees of the president when he was getting rid of other ministers for no reason except to hand over the keys of the Treasury to the govt associates. The current minister, Malusi Gigaba, is accused of having started the whole process of removing professionals and skilled individuals from all of the state-owned enterprises and replacing them with the govt associates. The current deputy minister is accused of having been, whilst he was still the chairperson of the PRASA board, diverting 150 million rands to himself and his family members, and allowing billions to be siphoned into the govt projects, not in order to build infrastructure or rails in South Africa, but to eat. And as proven now by the fact that there is basically billions that have gone to waste with them using wrong specs to get trains that cannot even go through our bridges because they are far too tall. And that's the individuals that we're talking about here. And so every time they say, we assure you, we run away because we just don't trust what they are saying. And that's the crisis of credibility in South Africa that we are facing. So the assurances rings hollow, unfortunately, to millions, except to the people who, of course, they are in partnership with to loot the state resources for personal gain.
And you keep referring to state capture and govtarization. So are you confirming the existence of state capture as well?
Oh, no. If we were living in a normal democracy, there will be loads and loads of people in courts now, or loads of them in prison. I think that if we had a normal NPA and uncaptured NPA, uncaptured hawks, uncaptured police, the deputy minister certainly would have been into prison for a conflict of interest. The minister himself would have been into some commission to answer why he removed skilled professionals from the state-owned enterprises and replaced them with the people that have links with Gupta, but more interestingly, with no skills to run the state-owned enterprises. And now, Eskom is in absolutely crisis, and SABC absolutely crisis, SAA, Petro SA, DNL, you name them all. Yeah. Suddenly they turn around and say, workers, put up your billions and clean the mess. No, we're refusing.
And you've also made mention, of course, even just now, that the deputy minister, could have been in prison had we had democracy, as you say. Your call really for culprits to be charged, were you just referring to him, the deputy minister, and the minister himself, or is it a lot of people?
The whole gang of hyenas. All of the cronies that are eating the carcass of our democracy should have been in prison by now if we had an independent, professional, national prosecuting authority. We've lost that. And in our view, the current head of the NPA, Mr. or Advocate Abrams, represent exactly what we mean by a captured puppy serving the master. And the shenanigans in the Hawks, the shenanigans in the police all reflect a very systematic program by the cronies that are surrounding the president and the Guptas to hollow them out, to domesticate them, so that when things like this come into public, none of them can act in the best interest of justice or in the best interest of the citizens of this country. And that's our basic crisis. So that's why we're saying on the PIC, hands off. Don't touch those trillions of workers. They do not belong to you. This is not a golden pot for you to dip in every time you create a crisis elsewhere and you will want that fund to be used. We did not, and we are not responsible for the downgrading of Eskom or the country by major rating agencies. The government, the president, is responsible for that. When they removed Nhlanhla Nene, they knew that that's what is going to lead to. When they removed Pravin Gordhan, SABC Jonas and other ministers, they knew that the rating agencies will downgrade South Africa. Now we have been downgrading. Eskom and all of these other state enterprises, SAA included, cannot go to the international markets to borrow money because they have no credibility. Nobody will throw their money into the black hole.
All right. Now, you're saying hands off on employees' pension funds. What are you going to do? Because you're calling on a moratorium to be placed on all of this. What do you think needs to be done going forward?
We think that the workers must occupy the streets as soon as possible. And we're calling for the broadest possible unity. We know that the trade union movement has been fragmented. Thanks again to the program to hollow out and domesticate even the state, even the organs of the people's power, such as the trade union movement itself. But we're saying for the sake of the future of your own members, let's combine in unity and let's resist. On our part, we are convening the public sector unions this Thursday so that we can start a process of consulting and talking to the Independent Labour Caucus or even the COSATU unions to say, guys, forget about the differences that usually divide us.
I wanted to say so because we know that they're also marching against state capture. So are we likely to see SAFTU and COSATU maybe coming together, fighting the state capture?
Well, if all begins well, if there is proper consultation between all of us, nobody have a right to impose program, which we have huge suspicions of, at least the 27th of April, 27th of September, strike by COSATU. We don't believe them. We know those guys very well. We don't think that this have anything to do with the principles. We think that this is part and parcel of sorting out the 18Q. In the ANC conference, this is pure factional. In fact, we jokingly call it the Ramaphosa strike to try and propel him into the presidency using workers as the cannon folder for factional battles inside the ANC. If COSATU was to be 1 minute be serious about what they're saying, the first thing they will turn their back on neoliberalism by not endorsing it in each and every elections, and then think that when the mess is created out of their own endorsement, they must now turn to workers and say, please clean the mess. They should be dealing with corruption inside the unions. There's 176 million rands that is missing in the SAMU books. When is COSATU going to act against that? Instead of acting, they protected the people behind that. These workers are saying 34 million rands when missing in the books of SATAU. When are they acting against that? So the only way they can convince us, firstly, is to act against corruption internally, and then secondly is to go out and say to the victims of their own purges, such as NUMSA and loads of other workers that were dismissed by those unions, hold on guys, we made a mistake. Time for unity is now. Let's march together. Only when they do that can we then say, yeah, these people are now serious. They have learned from the mistakes they have committed in the recent past.
All right, Dr. Vavi, we'll leave it at that for now. So the march is this week.
Their march
is this week,
and the workers who will be fooled enough to follow the factional battles of the ANC.
All right. Now we'll leave it at that. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Well, Zwelinzima Vavi is the General Secretary of the South African Federations of Trade Unions, and they've called for a halt to the reported process of using funds from government employees' pension funds to bail out the South African Airways. Let's take a break here on Morning Live. There's still much more to come. Stay tuned.